Before we start talking about community translation in particular, let's start talking about translation in general, basics of translation. By the way, I have an image here of the book Translation, The Basics by Julian House, which would be a good reference to start with. Translation is generally defined as the transfer of meaning from one language to another. House herself defines it as a procedure where an original text is replaced by another text in a different language. You will see here that we're talking about meaning and we're talking about text. In translation, we transfer meaning. We capture the meaning in the source text, that is to say, the original text, and we communicate it in a different language. And what's important in House's definition is that it stresses the fact that translation is about texts, replacing a text with another, or translating a text with another, rather than words or sentences. According to the Australian Code of Ethics for Interpreters and Translators, translation consists of optimal and complete message transfer into the target language, preserving the content and intent of the source message or text without omission or distortion. Again, key terms here are message transfer, and what's important about this quotation is that it stresses the need to transfer both content and intent. Not only what is said in the text, but what we believe the text producer wants to say, their intent, without any omission or distortion, trying to be as accurate as possible. We'll have opportunities to discuss this in other presentations. Now, when we say that our task as translators is to transfer meaning from one text to another, from one language to another, what do we mean by meaning? Even the word meaning can have different meanings. First of all, we have to distinguish between what is referred to in linguistics texts. First of all, we need to distinguish between what is referred to as denotative meaning and connotative meaning. Every word has a literal meaning, that is, say, the meaning you will find in a dictionary, but at the same time, the same word would have different connotations, different associations. To give you just one example, the word red. When you hear the word red in English or in your other language, you think of the color. That's the literal meaning. That's the denotative meaning of the word. Now, depending on your language and cultural background, you will associate red with different things. For some cultures, red represents sacrifice, danger, or courage. For others, it's closely related to passion, anger, love. For some languages and cultures, red means fertility, good luck, and something like that. So here we distinguish between the denotative meaning of red, which is the literal meaning of the word, and the different connotations it can suggest. It is very important to distinguish between these two types of meaning in translation, because one common error is to take things literally, to take words literally, and understand whole sentences literally, and fail to render the intended meaning or message. Another distinction we need to make is between semantic and pragmatic meaning. Semantic meaning is the type of dictionary explanations or meanings you will find in a dictionary, while pragmatic meaning is the meaning of words, sentences, and texts in their context of use. Again, semantic meaning is quite literal, while pragmatic meaning takes into consideration the context where something is said. Who is saying it, to whom, where, in what kind of institutional or interpersonal context. Let me give you an example. If you're seeing a doctor and the doctor tells you, can you please put your hands together? Most probably, you will put your hands together like this or like that, joining your hands, literally speaking. That's the literal or semantic meaning of the expression or the instruction. Now, the same instruction can have different meanings depending on the context where it is used. For example, at a conference, if someone says, please put your hands together for our special guest, that means please give them a round of applause. In a different context, if someone says or writes, let's put our hands together to save the planet, you obviously understand something different. The message is different in the sense that what the speaker or the writer intends here is, let's join forces, let's work together, let's cooperate in order to achieve some aim. There are other types of meaning, but let me add just one more, which is thematic meaning, because it's very relevant for the work of translators. It is relevant because it's the type of meaning that is communicated through word arrangement, through word order. You change the word order, you change the sequence of words in a given sentence, and you get slightly different meaning. For example, if you say, the government's recent decisions have caused the current unemployment rate, you start following the typical word order in English: subject, the government's recent decisions, verb, have caused, and then the complement, current employment rate. That's the default order. Now, the writer can play with this order in order to achieve specific impact or for special emphasis. Now, for the same sentence, we can say, it is the government's recent decisions that caused the current employment rate. Here, there is a different emphasis. We stress the fact that it was the government's recent decisions that did the action. Another alternative, the current employment rate has been caused by the government's recent decisions. As you can see, in the three sentences, we have basically the same propositional content. The meaning is the same, but the emphasis or the tone is different, and this is achieved through the way we arrange words and through the word order. This is very important in translation because you can transfer the meaning but fail to capture that specific nuance, that specific thematic meaning in the original text. So, what type of meaning are we looking for in translation? What type of meaning do we need to transfer from one text to another, from one language to another? Of course, all these types I have mentioned earlier are relevant, are important in translation. But what's essential for the work of translators is that we need to capture the pragmatic meaning of sentences and utterances, and we need to try and find a pragmatically equivalent way to express the same meaning in the target text. Because what happens if we focus on the semantic meaning alone, if we focus on the literal meaning of words and sentences alone, or if we tend to follow the sequence of words as it appears in the original text, most probably we will end up with very literal translations. In this example, we have two translations from Arabic. The first one on my left in orange, says vaccines are medicines that defend you from certain diseases. It trains the immune device to remember and fight germs. As you can see, we can get the meaning. We can get the sense of what the text is about or the paragraph is about. We know that it is about vaccines. We know that it is about vaccines and the fact that they protect you somehow because they train the immune system to remember and fight germs. But what happens here is that the translator followed the source text quite literally, using a word like defend, which might not be appropriate in the target language, also referring to vaccines, which is plural, using the pronoun it trains, simply because the source language has this option or this possibility of using a singular pronoun for a group of things. And then it says it trains the immune device to remember and fight germs. And you know that in English, we don't say immune device, but rather immune system. So again, if we look at the message pragmatically, let it say what the message or what the text writer intends to say, and we think of how we would say it pragmatically or naturally in English, we would end up with something better, something that would read like vaccines are medicines that protect you against specific diseases. We will end up with something like vaccines are medicines that protect you against specific diseases. They train your immune system to remember and fight germs.